What's up guys, Asian here again with another PTS video, and today we're going to be going over the new and improved bound armaments for stamina sorcerers. So in their attempt to sort of create a quote class identity for stamina sorcerers, the devs decided to update bound armaments here. So currently on live, bound armaments gives you some additional max stamina while you have it slotted. It improves your damage that your light attacks does while slotted. I believe while it's slotted, it also provides you minor ward and minor resolve, so that boosts your physical and spell resistance by 1320 each. And you can activate it for some level of additional block mitigation. I believe it maxes out at about 36% additional block mitigation when you activate bound armaments. Now, when you activate Bound Armaments, it does use up stamina, and that has pretty much remained the same between what's currently on live and what's currently on the Dragonhold PTS. The main difference here is the no longer have the block mitigation, and you no longer have the additional minor ward, minor resolve. Those have all been moved over to the Bound Aegis passive on Dragonhold. You still maintain the max stamina bonus, you still get 8% additional max stamina, and you still retain the light attack bonus. You get 10% additional damage to all your light attacks that you do while you have Bound Armaments slotted. Those two components haven't changed. Now, Bound Armaments acts very similarly to Relentless Resolve, I should say Unrelenting Focus and Merciless Resolve for Nightblades. They're bow procs. So, looking at Bound Armaments here, it's under the Daedric Summoning line, and it is the last ability that you unlock here. First thing that you'll notice is that the cost has gone down significantly, again, kind of mirroring the bow proc that Nightblades have. When you activate it, it lasts for 40 seconds. This is fully leveled, by the way. And each of your light and heavy attacks will summon a bound weapon for 10 seconds. Up to 4 of them can spawn at a time. You can then reactivate the ability at half cost, again reminiscent of the Nightblade bow proc, in order to arm the weapons, causing them to strike your target for 35 and 95 physical damage each over 0.3 seconds. And again, that last line there, while slotted, you have your max stamina increased by 8%, and your light attack damage is increased by additional 10%. So this is the new bound armaments. It basically acts very similarly to the bow proc that Nightblades have, with a little bit of a twist to its overall functionality. The first thing that sort of separates this from the bow proc is the number of weapons that you have. So the bow proc, once you have 5 light attacks done, or heavy attacks, you get the bow proc and you're able to fire it off. Here, however, it's every single light and heavy attack that you do summons one of these weapons, and then when you have 4 of them, you can reactivate the ability to launch all 4. Now, this also means that you can launch these weapons earlier. So if you only happen to have 2 weapons, you can still activate this ability and you'd be able to launch those 2 weapons out. Compare that to the bow proc, where it's pretty much an all or nothing go. You hit the 5, you launch the bow, and you start to recount again. The other thing with bound armaments is that the bound weapons last for 10 seconds compared to the infinite amount of time, assuming you should remain in combat that whole time, for the bow proc. So as long as you're within combat, you'll be able to maintain the stacks even when Merciless Resolve or Unrelenting Focus, Relentless Focus, wears completely out. So let's say you drop it for 30 seconds and then you decide to re-up it, you still have the same stacks that you had 30 seconds ago. Here, however, once those 10 seconds are up, you no longer have the bound weapons. So really quickly, just to kind of demonstrate this for you, we activate Bound Armaments, and you can see we have that 4-second timer going down there on the toolbar there from Action Duration Reminder. Now if we go ahead and attack once, you can see that the dagger does show up here, and we get 4 up. Now, once 10 seconds are over, so once the timer down here reaches 21 seconds, all 4 of these daggers will disappear all at once. You will not be able to use them again. So you can see here, they all disappear all at once. So the 10-second timer, it starts off from the very last dagger that you happen to summon. So if you summon one dagger here at 36 seconds, and then you summon a dagger again at 31 seconds for whatever reason, both daggers disappear at 21 seconds remaining, rather than the first dagger disappearing at 26 seconds and the second one disappearing at 21 seconds. So that's how that component of it works. Now in terms of launching it out, let's get all 4 up. We'll let all of these sort of visual effects disappear so you guys can see that it is actually 4 independent hits. So you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, you see the 4 little flashes of light, so it is each independent hit, and that does cause a little bit of a difference in how the damage is calculated, which I'll go over in a little bit here. But like I mentioned, you can also launch this early, so if I decide to launch it now, I only get 2 hits off. Now, as we allow Bound Armaments to completely run out, so after 40 seconds, Bound Armaments will completely run out. Now, with the bow proc with Nightblades, you can re-up the duration of the buff, whether that's the 20 seconds or 30 seconds, depending on which morph you have. You can just re-up it no matter where you're at in terms of number of stacks, as long as you don't have a bow proc active. If you have a bow proc active, you have to launch the bow, and then you're able to re-up it. However, here, in Bound Armaments, you're not able to do that. If you have any daggers up, you need to use them all up before you can reactivate and renew the duration. So that what that means for your rotation is basically you have 2 options. You can either launch all the daggers with 1 press and then basically double press it, so that way you re-up the duration that way, or you can just let it run completely out and then re-up it that way instead. Whichever one works best for you. I personally have found that just letting Bound Armaments run completely out and then re-upping it at my next kind of best place to re-up it is, generally speaking, going to be a little bit smoother for your rotation rather than double pressing Bound Armaments here. Now, as to the fact that Bound Armaments hits 4 times rather than 1 time, this does introduce a little bit of a weird sort of mathematical, I don't want to call it an anomaly, but it's an interesting mathematical quirk behind the ability here. So if we go ahead and pull up combat metrics here, you'll see that Bound Armaments counts each individual dagger hit as its own hit, which means each individual dagger, each individual hit has a chance to crit. Compared to the bow proc, where it's basically, I mentioned this earlier, it's all or nothing. You get the bow proc off, and that's it, so it's only 1 single hit. What this basically means is that Bound Armaments should, at least in theory, have a little bit of a better chance getting more crits out. At the same time, it also means you have a better chance of getting less crits out. Think of it as rolling dice. For those of you guys who play Dungeons & Dragons, you know that there are several different ways that you can get your starting stats for your characters. A lot of people use, for example, 4d6, so you roll 4 6-sided dice and you take away the lowest one. Others roll just 3 6-sided dice, still others roll 2 10-sided dice, and to the extremes, you have people who roll 1 20-sided dice. Now, if you take into consideration the probabilities for each one, you'll notice, if you take a look at the distribution, that a 3d6 is a little bit different than 1d20 or even 2d10s, and that's because 1d20 you're only rolling 1 dice, so each of those 20 numbers has an equal chance of showing up. If you're rolling 3d6, suddenly that changes your probability distribution, so now it looks a little bit more like a normal curve, your typical bell curve that you guys would have seen in something like a high school statistics class. That basically means that you are more likely to see certain values than other values, and that's kind of what we have here. So with the bow proc, you pretty much have just either one or another. So you have, I don't want to say equal chance, but you're basically only have 1 chance to get a crit. With multiple hits with Bound Armaments, you now have the possibility of getting a little bit closer to that mean. So at the same time, though, that also decreases the probability that you'll have any of the extremes out there. So the probability of very low crits and very high crits. So for bow procs, for example, and you'll see this a lot in Nightblade parses, people who just try to what we call farm crits, you do see the extremes more often with bow procs on Nightblades compared to here with Bound Armaments. With the fact that Bound Armaments has multiple hits rather than an all or nothing like the bow proc, you're more likely to get closer to your actual crit chance compared to getting those extremes where you might get very low crit or very high crit. So that does help out a little bit and kind of differentiates it a little bit from the Nightblade bow proc. But that is how Bound Armaments work in the new and improved Dragonhold DLC. We're based on the week 3 patch notes. It doesn't seem like they're going to be changing Bound Armaments at all, at least in terms of its functionality. We might see a couple of tooltip changes, for example, but I think the base functionality is pretty much going to remain as is here. So let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about this new and improved Bound Armaments. I know I've seen a lot of posts on Reddit and on the official forums complaining that this is essentially just a reskinned bow proc from Nightblades, but I kind of want to see what you guys think. Me personally, I think there is enough distinction between Bound Armaments and bow proc that it does feel fairly unique, but I do also understand that sort of concern that this is just reskinning the bow proc from Nightblades. That is it for this video. Hopefully you guys found this informative. If you guys have any questions about what I was explaining earlier with sort of the mathematics behind Bound Armaments and the bow proc from Nightblades, feel free to ask that in the comment section below. I'll try to expand on it a little bit more, but I think that's kind of outside the confines of this video. Hope you guys found this informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.